When Jinwoo returned to the crash site with the civilians, he found a miracle. Minho's crew was still alive. Barely. They had used the Testament's tactical data to set up a defensive position in the wreckage of an old cargo building. Dead Vorath soldiers lay scattered around the perimeter, but more were coming. Always more. Nari saw him first. Her face was covered in dust and blood, but she smiled when she saw the children. "You did it," she said. "We all did," Jinwoo replied. He looked at Minho. "How long can you hold?" "Not long enough." The captain pointed to the horizon where a massive Vorath battleship was descending. "That's the Wrath of Korvax, command ship of the Vorath Grand Marshal himself. He's coming personally to take the Testament." The Testament pulsed against Jinwoo's chest, urgent and insistent. Images flooded his mind. The gateway. It was close now, maybe half a kilometer away, but it would not activate until he passed the final trial, and the final trial was about to begin. The ground shook as the command ship landed. A massive figure emerged from the loading ramp, surrounded by elite guards. Even from a distance, Jinwoo could see this Vorath was different. Bigger, wearing armor that gleamed like polished obsidian, he carried weapons that hummed with energy. "War Master Drex," Minho whispered. "He's never lost a battle. They say he's killed more humans than any other Vorath alive." Drex's voice boomed across the ruins, amplified by speakers in his armor. "Human with the Testament. I offer you one chance. Surrender the device and I will give you a quick death. Refuse and I will kill everyone here slowly while you watch." Jinwoo felt fear twist in his stomach. This was not like hiding from drones or running from soldiers. This was facing down a monster that could crack buildings with its bare hands. The Testament pulsed, and suddenly Jinwoo was somewhere else again. Not physically, his body still stood in the ruins, but his mind was in a strange white space, face to face with the holographic precursor. "Final trial," the precursor said. "To unlock the gateway, you must face your fear. Not run from it. Not hide from it. Face it directly and prove you are willing to stand even when standing means certain death." "That thing will kill me," Jinwoo said. "Probably," the precursor agreed. "War Master Drex has trained for 300 years. You are a maintenance engineer who learned to fight by surviving. In pure combat, you have almost no chance. Then what's the point?" The precursor smiled sadly. "Courage is not about winning. It is about fighting anyway. The Testament has watched 1,000,000 champions across 1,000,000 years. They were all stronger than you, faster, better trained. But they all had one thing in common. When they knew they could not win, they surrendered. They chose survival over resistance. And you want me to choose death? I want you to choose defiance. The precursors built the Testament because we understood something fundamental about the universe. Power without will is meaningless. Strength without courage is hollow. We do not need an heir who always wins. We need an heir who never quits." The white space faded. Jinwoo was back in the ruins facing the War Master. "What's your answer, human?" Drex called. Jinwoo looked at Minho's crew. They were watching him, waiting to follow his lead. He looked at the civilians he had saved, the children who deserved a future. He looked at Nari, who had dedicated her life to protecting people in an unwinnable war. Then he looked at the Testament in his hands and thought about his sister. About her final words, "Don't you dare give up." "My answer," Jinwoo called back, "is no." He started walking toward War Master Drex. The Testament blazed with light in his hands. "You're insane," Minho hissed. "He'll kill you." "Probably," Jinwoo said. "But that's not the point. The point is making him work for it." The Testament fed information into his mind. Combat techniques. Not precursor ones yet, he had not earned those. But human ones. Every style of fighting that desperate people had developed over thousands of years. It was not much against a trained killer, but it was something. Drex laughed as Jinwoo approached. "You're brave, I'll give you that. Stupid, but brave." "Yeah, I get that a lot." The War Master attacked without warning. His first strike would have cut Jinwoo in half if he had not rolled aside at the last second. The Testament helped, showing him where the blow was coming before it landed. But the information was barely fast enough. Drex was impossibly quick for something so large. Jinwoo fought back with everything he had. He used the ruins as cover, ducking behind walls and scrambling over rubble. He used every dirty trick he knew, throwing dust in Drex's eyes, hitting weak points in the armor, using the environment as a weapon. It was not enough. Drex's fist caught him in the ribs, cracking bones. A kick sent him flying into a wall. Every hit was like being struck by a truck, but Jinwoo got up. Every single time he got back up. "Why do you keep standing?" Drex demanded. He sounded genuinely curious now. "You cannot win. You know this. Surrender and die with dignity." Jinwoo spat blood. "Dignity is for people who have choices. I don't have that luxury," he charged again. Drex caught him and threw him like a rag doll. Jinwoo hit the ground hard enough to see stars. His vision blurred. His body screamed that it could not take any more. He stood up anyway. Behind him he heard Minho's crew cheering. Not because they thought he could win, but because he kept trying. Because he refused to break. The testament pulsed with increasing intensity. The light it gave off was blinding now. Drex paused. "That's enough. You've proven your point. Surrender the testament and I'll make it quick." "Can't do that," Jinwoo said. His words were slurred. He was pretty sure he had a concussion. "Still have a test to pass?" He stumbled forward for another attack. Drex almost looked sad as he prepared to deliver the killing blow. Then the testament spoke. Not the precursor hologram. The device itself in a voice like thunder. "Third trial complete." The light from the testament exploded outward. Jinwoo felt it enter his body, changing him, healing him, making him more than he had been. Knowledge flooded his mind. Not just information, but understanding. The precursor's technology was his now. Their combat techniques, their scientific principles, all of it. More importantly, the testament connected him to something vast. A network of devices spread across the galaxy, all waking up at once. The gateway activated. Half a kilometer away, the ground split open and ancient machinery rose from beneath the ruins. A portal formed in the air, crackling with energy. Drex saw it and roared in fury. He charged at Jinwoo for the final killing strike. But Jinwoo was not the same person who had started this fight. The testament had given him access to basic precursor combat systems. Not weapons, those were beyond the gateway. But tools. A personal shield that turned Drex's blow aside. Enhanced reflexes that let him dodge attacks he could never have avoided before. He still could not beat Drex in a fair fight. But he did not need to win. He just needed to survive long enough to reach the gateway. Jinwoo ran. Drex chased him, roaring threats. Behind them, Minho's crew provided covering fire, forcing the other Vorath soldiers to keep their distance. Jinwoo reached the gateway and turned back. Drex was right behind him, his massive fist raised for a strike that would smash through even precursor shields. "You were right about one thing," Jinwoo said. "I'm stupid. But that's what makes humans dangerous. We're too stupid to know when to quit." He dove through the gateway. Drex followed, unable to stop his momentum. They emerged in a place that should not exist. A vast chamber that seemed to stretch forever in all directions. Ancient precursor technology filled the space. Weapons, ships, devices whose purpose Jinwoo could only guess at. And everywhere, there was light. The light of machines that had slept for millions of years, now waking up because someone had finally passed the testament's trials. Drex stood in the center of the chamber, looking around in shock. "Impossible," he whispered. "That's what they told me when I said I'd survive the colony attack," Jinwoo said. "Guess I don't listen very well." The testament's voice echoed through the chamber. "The trials are complete. The human Jinwoo has proven worthy. He carries the weight of the dead without being crushed. He chooses the weak over the strong. He stands when standing is impossible. He is the heir we have been waiting for." Power systems throughout the chamber activated. Defensive platforms, manufacturing stations, and most importantly, communication arrays that reached across the entire galaxy. Every precursor installation, on every dead world, in every hidden facility, received the same signal. Humanity had been chosen. The testament had found its heir. Jinwoo looked at Drex. The War Master's armor was already being targeted by a dozen defensive systems. "Last chance," Jinwoo said. "Surrender and leave. Tell the Vorath Empire that humanity is done running. Tell them we're coming for them, with the full power of the precursors behind us. Or stay here and be erased from existence." Drex stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly the War Master turned and walked back through the gateway. Not because he was afraid, Vorath did not know fear, but because he was a warrior and he recognized when a battle was lost. The gateway closed behind him. Jinwoo was alone in the ancient chamber, surrounded by technology that could reshape the galaxy. He should have felt triumphant. Instead, he just felt tired. The testament pulsed gently against his chest. "Well done," the precursor's voice said. "You have claimed the legacy. What will you do with it?" Jinwoo thought about his sister. The second trial came 3 days later, in the middle of a firefight. Jinwoo had been moving through the ruins, staying ahead of the Vorath search parties. They had divided into groups, systematically clearing every section of the colony. But they were outsiders. They did not know about the hidden passages and collapsed tunnels that Jinwoo used to slip between sections. He was crossing through an old residential area when he heard it. A ship. Not Vorath this time. The engine sound was different. Human. Jinwoo's heart jumped. He had not heard a human ship in 3 years. He climbed to a higher vantage point and looked up. There, breaking through the clouds, was a small frigate. It was damaged badly, trailing smoke from one engine, but it was flying the old Earth Alliance colors. Hope bloomed in his chest for the first time since the attack. The ship came in fast and hard, crash landing in the old industrial sector about 2 kilometers away. Vorath fighters followed it down, firing plasma cannons. The human ship returned fire with everything it had, shooting down one fighter before it hit the ground. Jinwoo ran toward the crash site. The Vorath would be there soon, and whoever was on that ship would need help. The testament bounced against his chest as he ran, pulsing faster like it was excited. He reached the crash site just as the ship's side door blew open. People stumbled out, coughing in the dust and smoke. Jinwoo counted 27 of them. Most wore the patched uniforms of resistance fighters. A few were clearly civilians. A man in a captain's jacket saw him and raised a weapon. Jinwoo threw his hands up. "Human," he shouted. "I'm human." The captain lowered his gun slightly. "Survivors?" "On Taeyang 7. "Just me," Jinwoo said. "At least I thought it was just me until now." "Minho," the captain said, offering his hand. "Captain of the Soul's Defiance, or what's left of it." They shook hands quickly. In the distance, the sound of Vorath transports grew louder. "We don't have much time," Minho said. "We detected a massive energy signal from this planet. Precursor technology. We came to investigate, but the Vorath were already here." "I know what the signal was," Jinwoo said. He pulled the testament from his jacket. Even in the dim light of the crash site, it glowed with its soft blue pulse. Minho's eyes went wide. "Is that the testament?" "Yeah." Jinwoo quickly explained what had happened, what the testament was testing him for. As he talked, the other survivors gathered around. Most looked like they had been fighting for a long time. Thin faces, worn equipment, eyes that had seen too much death. One of them, a young woman with a medic's armband, stepped forward. "I'm Nari," she said. "If what you're saying is true, if the testament can give us precursor technology, we could actually fight back. We could take the war to the Vorath instead of just running and hiding." "If I pass the tests," Jinwoo said. "I've only done one so far." "Then we help you pass them," Minho said firmly. "Whatever it takes." The sound of Vorath transports was very close now. Minho started giving orders, setting up a defensive perimeter around the crashed ship. But there were only 27 of them against hundreds of Vorath soldiers. That was when the testament pulsed, hard and urgent. Jinwoo gasped as the world changed around him. Not a vision this time. Reality itself seemed to split in two. He could see the crash site, see the Vorath transports landing nearby. But he could also see something else. A different place, about 3 kilometers away. An old shelter where civilians were trapped. He did not know how he knew, but the testament was showing him. 12 people, 8 adults and 4 children, trapped in a collapsed emergency shelter, their air running out. They had been there since the initial attack 3 years ago, surviving on stored supplies and recycled air. But their system was failing now, and the testament's energy pulse had disrupted the last of their equipment. They had maybe an hour before they suffocated. And at the same time, the Vorath were surrounding the crash site. Minho and his crew had maybe 30 minutes before they were overwhelmed. The testament showed Jinwoo the paths. He could reach the shelter in time to save the civilians. Or he could stay here and help Minho's crew hold off the Vorath. But he could not do both. There was not enough time. Second trial, the precursor's voice whispered in his mind. Choose who lives and who dies. Choose and live with your choice. Jinwoo's mouth went dry. This was impossible. These were people. Living, breathing people who deserved to survive. How could he choose? Minho was talking to him, but Jinwoo barely heard. His mind raced through options. Could he split the group? No, there were not enough fighters as it was. Could he find a way to save both? The testament showed him the answer, no. The distances were too far, the time too short, soldiers or civilians. Adults who had chosen to fight, or children who had never had a choice at all. I have to go, Jinwoo said suddenly. Minho stopped talking. What? There are civilians trapped 3 kilometers from here, children, their air is running out. I have to get to them. We need you here, one of the fighters said. That thing you're carrying, it's our only hope. Those are children, Jinwoo said. His voice was rough. They didn't ask to be in this war, you did. You all did. Nari stepped forward. He's right. Our job is to protect people, not the other way around. If we die here, who protects anyone? Minho argued. Jinwoo looked at the testament in his hands. It pulsed steadily, waiting for his decision. He thought about what the test was really measuring. Courage was not about making easy choices. It was about making impossible ones and living with the consequences. The testament can help you, he said to Minho. It has scanning abilities. I can set it to guide you through the ruins, show you the best defensive positions and escape routes. It's not much, but it's something. He programmed the testament quickly, letting it share its tactical data with Minho's equipment. Then he looked at the captain. If I don't make it back, tell whoever finds the testament next that courage isn't about saving yourself. It's about choosing who you save and why. Minho's face was hard, but he nodded. Go, we'll hold them as long as we can. Jinwoo ran. Behind him, the sound of plasma fire erupted as the Vorath attacked. The testament showed him the path, highlighting it in his mind like a glowing trail. He ran through ruins, jumped over collapsed walls, slid down embankments. His lungs burned. His legs screamed. But he kept running because 12 people were counting on him. 4 children who deserved a chance to grow up. He reached the shelter with 10 minutes to spare. The door was buried under rubble. Jinwoo pulled out the tools the testament's fabricator had made and started digging. His hands bled. His muscles shook with exhaustion, but he did not stop. He broke through just as the air inside turned toxic. The people inside were barely conscious. Jinwoo pulled them out one by one, dragging them into the open air. The children first, then the adults. The last person he pulled out was a woman about his sister's age. She looked at him with dazed eyes and whispered, "Thank you." Jinwoo collapsed next to them, his body finally giving out. In the distance, he could still hear fighting. Minho's crew was still alive, still fighting. The testament pulsed, warm against his chest. Second trial complete, the precursor's voice said. You chose the innocent over the warriors, the helpless over the strong. You understand that courage is measured not by who you save, but by what you're willing to sacrifice to save them. Light erupted from the testament. Jinwoo felt it spreading through his body, healing his wounds, restoring his strength. More than that, it was changing something fundamental, connecting him to the testament on a deeper level. Knowledge flooded his mind. Precursor combat techniques, advanced fabrication plans, tactical systems, and most importantly, the location of something big, something that could change everything. A gateway, hidden in the ruins. A gateway to the precursor's arsenal. Jinwoo stood up feeling stronger than he had in years. The civilians looked at him with wonder. Around them, the ruins seemed less threatening somehow, as if the testament was creating a protective field. Can you walk? He asked them. They nodded, helping each other stand. Then follow me. I know some people who could use our help. Together, they headed back toward the crash site, toward the sound of battle. The testament blazed with light, announcing to everyone watching that Jinwoo had passed another trial, 2 down. 1 more to go before the gateway would open, and then the real fight would begin. The first trial came without warning. One moment Jinwoo was gathering his supplies, preparing to flee deeper into the ruins. The next moment he was somewhere else, not physically. His body still stood in his shelter, but his mind was elsewhere. He stood in the main plaza of Taeyang 7 as it had been before the attack. Clean streets, working lights, people moving between buildings, talking and laughing like they had futures to plan for. And there, standing by the fountain in the center of the plaza, was Hana. She looked exactly as he remembered. 24 years old, her hair tied back in the practical bun she always wore, her engineer's uniform clean and pressed. She smiled when she saw him, that warm smile that had always made him feel like everything would be okay. Jinwoo, she said. You're still here. He wanted to run to her, to hug her, to apologize for not saving her. But something held him back. This was not real. This was the Testament's test. I'm here, he said carefully. Hana's smile faded. You should not be. You should have died with us. Why are you still alive when we're all dead? The question hit harder than any physical blow. It was the question that had haunted him for 3 years. Why him? Why had he survived when 20,000 others had not? More figures appeared around the plaza. People he had known, co-workers, friends, the family that lived next door to his apartment, all of them staring at him with empty eyes. You hid while we burned, said Park, the old security chief. You saved yourself and left us to die. I tried, Jinwoo started to say. You tried? Interrupted Kim, a young woman who had worked in the hydroponics section. I was trapped under rubble for 6 hours before the fire reached me. 6 hours of calling for help. Where were you? In the maintenance tunnels, Jinwoo whispered. I couldn't reach anyone. The passages were all blocked. Excuses, Hana said quietly. Her voice was cold now, nothing like the sister he remembered. You survived because you were good at running and hiding. Not because you were brave. Not because you deserved it. The crowd pressed closer. Thousands of faces now. All the people who had died in the attack. All of them looking at him with accusation in their eyes. You're still alive, they said together, their voices blending into one terrible sound. You're still alive and we're not. What makes you so special? What gives you the right? Jinwoo felt his legs shaking. The weight of their words pressed down on him like a physical thing. They were right. He was not special. He was not brave. He had just been lucky, and lucky was not the same as worthy. Maybe he should give up the testament. Let it go to someone else. Someone who actually deserved the precursor's legacy. Someone who had not spent 3 years living like a rat in the ruins of a dead city. Don't you dare give up on us. The words cut through the crowd's accusations. Hana's voice, but different. This was the real Hana, the one from his memories, not the cold copy the testament had created. Don't you dare. Jinwoo closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them again, he looked directly at the ghost of his sister. You're right, he said. I did survive. I hid and ran and did whatever it took to stay alive. I'm not special. I'm not a hero. I'm just a maintenance engineer who refused to die, the crowd murmured, angry. But that's not why I'm still here. Jinwoo continued. I'm not alive because I deserve it more than you. I'm alive because I got lucky, and now I have a chance to make that luck mean something. He stepped forward, walking toward Hana even as the crowd pressed in around him. The Vorath took everything from us. Our homes, our futures, our people, and they're still out there, doing the same thing to other humans on other worlds. If I give up now, if I let guilt crush me, then what? They win, everyone dies for nothing. Tears ran down his face, but he kept walking. I can't bring you back. I can't change what happened. But I can keep fighting. I can use whatever the testament gives me to make sure the Vorath pay for what they did. I can make sure your deaths meant something. He stood directly in front of Hana now. She looked at him with those empty eyes, and for a moment he thought he had failed. That the test was to give up, to acknowledge his unworthiness. Then she smiled. The real smile. The warm one. There you are, she said softly. I knew you were in there somewhere. The plaza dissolved like smoke. The crowd vanished. Jinwoo was back in his shelter, gasping for air like he had been running. The testament pulsed once, a deep, satisfied pulse that he felt in his chest. First trial complete. The precursor's voice echoed in his mind. You carry the weight of the dead, but you do not let it crush you. You understand that guilt is not the same as defeat. A section of his shelter's wall flickered and changed. A panel appeared, smooth and dark like the testament itself. It slid open to reveal a small fabricator, more advanced than any technology Jinwoo had seen. The testament fed information directly into his mind, how to use it, what it could make. Basic tools and equipment. Nothing that would win a war, but enough to give him a fighting chance. The shelter shook as an explosion sounded nearby. Dust fell from the ceiling. The Vorath were getting closer. Jinwoo wiped his eyes and stood up. His hands were steadier now. The ghosts of the past would always be with him, but he understood now that carrying them did not mean surrendering to them. He loaded the fabricator with scrap metal from his supplies and set it to work, making a better breathing mask and some basic armor plating. While it worked, he packed his bag with what he would need to move to a new shelter. This one was compromised now. The testament pulsed again, and more information flooded his mind. The second trial was coming, soon, but for now he had to focus on surviving the Vorath assault. The testament measured courage through action, not just thought. If he died before completing the trials, someone else would get a chance. The precursors would wait another few thousand years if they had to. Jinwoo was not going to let that happen. He checked his supplies one last time, secured the testament in a special pocket he had sewn into his jacket, and opened the shelter door. The colony ruins stretched before him, filled with Vorath soldiers searching building by building. They were looking for him, for the testament. They would tear apart every stone in the colony if they had to. Let them try. Jinwoo had been running and hiding for 3 years. He knew these ruins better than anyone alive, and now he had something worth fighting for. He disappeared into the maze of broken buildings, leaving the shelter behind. The testament pulsed against his chest, keeping rhythm with his heartbeat. 2 trials down. How many more to go? He did not know. But he would face them all one at a time, because that was what humans did. They kept going even when going seemed impossible. They stood up even when staying down would be easier. They refused to quit. Jinwoo did not sleep that night. He sat at his workbench staring at the sphere as it pulsed with its soft blue light. Every few minutes images would flood his mind. Not painful exactly, but overwhelming, like trying to drink from a fire hose. He saw cities of glass and metal stretching across entire planets. He saw ships the size of moons moving between stars faster than light itself. He saw creatures that looked like walking crystals, others that seemed made of pure energy, and some that were so alien he could not understand what he was looking at. And he saw them all kneeling before monuments covered in the same symbols that decorated the sphere. The testament. That was what the sphere called itself. Not out loud, but directly into his thoughts. It had been waiting in the deep vault for thousands of years, maybe millions, waiting for someone to find it, someone to test. As the sun rose over the ruined colony, the testament began to teach him, not with words, but with understanding that simply appeared in his mind. The precursors had built an empire that spanned the galaxy long before humans had even learned to make fire. They had technology that could reshape planets, weapons that could crack moons, and ships that moved through space and time like a person walking through a door. They were the greatest civilization that had ever existed, but they had disappeared. Millions of years ago, they had simply vanished, leaving behind only their ruins and their mysteries. The testament was one of those mysteries. A device designed to measure courage, not strength or intelligence or skill in battle. Just courage. The will to keep going when everything said to give up. The precursors had sent testaments to hundreds of worlds. They wanted to find a species worthy of inheriting their technology and their legacy. Species after species had tried. Warriors and champions and heroes from races Jinwoo had never heard of had taken the testament's tests. All of them had failed. The Vorath Empire had tried 500 years ago. Their greatest war chiefs had taken the tests and broken under the pressure. The Nathari Collective, a species of machines more advanced than any human computer, had tried and failed. The Kryn warrior clans, who were said to fear nothing, had tried and failed. The testament showed Jinwoo why. It showed him a Vorath warrior facing a test where he had to choose between his own life and the lives of his soldiers. The warrior had chosen himself. It showed him a Nathari machine facing a test of pure terror, and the machine had chosen to shut down rather than continue. It showed him a Kryn champion facing a test of impossible pain, and the champion had begged for mercy. The precursors had not been looking for the strongest species. They had been looking for the most stubborn. The ones who would stand when standing was stupid. The ones who would fight when fighting was hopeless. The ones who would refuse to break even when breaking would be easier. Jinwoo laughed, a short, bitter sound. If that was what they wanted, they had definitely found the right species. Humans were good at being too stupid to quit. The testament pulsed as if agreeing with him. A sound from outside made him freeze. Engines. Not the grinding of drones, but the deep roar of actual ships. Jinwoo moved to the small window in his shelter and looked up. The sky was full of them. Vorath warships descending through the atmosphere like dark metal birds. He counted at least 20, with more appearing every moment. Troop carriers, fighter craft, and one massive battleship that blocked out the sun as it passed overhead. His blood went cold. The Vorath had detected the Testament's activation. Of course they had. Every species in the galaxy with the right sensors would have seen it. And the Vorath did not like losing. 500 years ago, the Testament had judged them unworthy. They would want another chance, or they would want to make sure no one else got a chance either. The Testament pulsed urgently. More images flooded Jinwoo's mind faster now. It was showing him something important. The ships in orbit were not just Vorath. There were others. Nathari vessels, slim and silver, Kryn raider ships painted in war colors, even species he did not recognize, all converging on this dead planet because of the signal the Testament had sent. They all wanted the precursor legacy. They all wanted the power, and they all knew that a human had activated the Testament. Jinwoo felt fear twist in his stomach. He was one man with a bag of salvage tools living in the ruins of a dead colony. What was he supposed to do against entire fleets? The Testament answered without him asking. It projected an image directly into his vision, overlaying what he could see with his eyes. A hologram appeared in the center of his shelter, showing a figure that looked almost human but not quite right. Taller, with skin that seemed to shimmer with its own light. A precursor. "You have activated the Testament," the figure said. Its voice was strange, like multiple people speaking at once. "The test has begun. You cannot stop it now. You cannot hide from it. You can only pass or fail. What happens if I fail?" Jinwoo asked out loud. "The Testament will move to another candidate, another species, another test. It will continue until someone proves worthy, even if it takes another 1,000,000 years. And if I pass," the precursor smiled, "then you inherit everything we left behind. The technology to reshape worlds, the weapons to defend against any enemy, the knowledge to build an empire that spans the stars." Jinwoo looked at the window, at the Vorath ships landing in the distance. "I think a lot of people are going to try to stop me from taking this test." "Yes," the precursor said simply. "The test measures courage. There would be no measure if there was no danger." The hologram faded, leaving Jinwoo alone with the pulsing sphere. He sat down on his bed, suddenly exhausted despite not having slept. This was insane. He was a maintenance engineer who fixed air filters and water recyclers. He was not a hero or a warrior or whatever the precursors thought they were looking for. But then he remembered Hana's last words. "Don't you dare give up." He had survived 3 years in these ruins because he refused to quit. When food ran out, he found more. When the shelter broke, he fixed it. When the drones came hunting, he hid and ran and came back fighting. He did not quit because quitting meant dying, and he had promised his sister he would not give up. Maybe that was all courage really was. Not some grand heroic quality, but just the stubborn refusal to stop. The Testament pulsed, and Jinwoo felt something shift in his mind. A connection forming like a door opening. "I accept," he said quietly. "Let's do this test." The Testament blazed with light so bright that Jinwoo had to shield his eyes. When the light faded, the sphere had changed. The symbols on its surface were different now, arranged in patterns that seemed to show a path forward. And in the distance, he heard the first explosions as the Vorath began their assault on the colony ruins. The test had begun. The dust never settled on Taiyang 7. 3 years after the bombs fell, the wind still carried ash through the broken streets of what used to be a human colony. Jinwoo pulled his scarf tighter around his face as he moved through the ruins. The morning sun barely cut through the smoke that hung in the air like a dirty blanket. He walked carefully, watching for the metal bones of collapsed buildings. One wrong step could send him falling into the underground sections. That had happened once, 6 months ago. He still had the scar on his leg to remind him. Jinwoo carried a bag made from old cargo netting. Inside were pieces of broken technology he had collected over the past week. A power cell from a medical station, wiring from a destroyed drone, a cracked display screen that might still work if he cleaned it properly. These things kept him alive. He traded them for food with the automated supply drops that still came every few months, programmed by people who were probably dead now. The Vorath had been thorough when they attacked. They burned the colony from orbit first, then sent soldiers to finish what the fires had started. Jinwoo remembered hiding in the maintenance tunnels while the world above him exploded. He remembered the screams on the communication channels. He remembered his sister Hannah's voice, calm even as her section of the colony collapsed around her. "Don't you dare give up on us," she had said. "Don't you dare!" Then static. Then nothing. Jinwoo shook his head and focused on the present. The past was a weight he carried, but it couldn't be changed. The present was about survival. One day at a time. One salvaged part at a time. Today he was heading to the deep vault. He had avoided that section of the colony for 3 years. The vault was in the oldest part of the settlement, built when the first colonists arrived 40 years ago. It was supposed to be for emergency supplies and important records, but it had been sealed during the attack, and Jinwoo had never found a way inside. Until yesterday, when a small earthquake had cracked open one of the side passages. He reached the entrance as the sun climbed higher. The crack in the wall was narrow, barely wide enough for him to squeeze through. Jinwoo turned on his flashlight, checked his breathing mask, and pushed himself into the darkness. The air inside was stale but breathable. His light cut through the black, showing walls covered in old warning signs. Authorized personnel only. Emergency storage. Critical systems access. All meaningless now. The passage opened into a larger chamber. Jinwoo swept his light across the space and stopped breathing for a moment. The vault was huge, easily 50 meters across, but it wasn't full of supplies or records. In the center of the room sat a massive sphere. It was black as space itself, taller than Jinwoo by at least 2 meters. Strange symbols covered its surface, glowing with a soft blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. The light moved across the sphere in waves, the symbols shifting and changing as they went. Jinwoo had seen a lot of strange technology in his years as a maintenance engineer. Human tech, Vorath equipment, even some alien devices from the trader species that used to visit the colony. But this was different. This felt old in a way that made his skin crawl. He approached slowly, his footsteps echoing in the empty vault. The sphere's light grew brighter as he got closer. The symbols moved faster, swirling around the surface like water going down a drain. Something pulled him forward. Not physically, but like a voice in his head calling his name. His hand reached out before his brain told it to move. The moment his fingers touched the black surface, everything changed. Light exploded through his mind. Images flooded his thoughts, moving too fast to understand. Cities that reached the clouds, ships that sailed between stars, creatures of 1,000 different shapes, all bowing before monuments covered in the same symbols he saw on the sphere. Then words appeared in his head, clear as day despite being in a language he had never seen before. The worthy shall be measured. Only the unbowed may claim the legacy. Jinwoo pulled his hand back, gasping. His heart hammered against his ribs. The sphere pulsed once more, then began to shrink. In seconds, it went from 2 meters tall to the size of his fist. It dropped into his hands, warm to the touch despite looking like cold stone. The symbols on its surface still glowed, but quieter now, gentler. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the thing in his hands. His engineering training told him to study it, figure out how it worked, be careful. But something deeper, something he couldn't name, told him this was important, maybe the most important thing he had ever found. A sound echoed from the passage behind him. Mechanical. Grinding. Drones. Jinwoo's blood went cold. The sphere must have sent out some kind of signal when it activated. The Vorath patrol drones swept through the ruins every few days, searching for survivors. He had gotten good at avoiding them over the years. But if they had detected the energy from the sphere, they would come in force. He shoved the sphere into his bag and ran for the exit. Behind him, red scanning lights cut through the darkness of the vault. The grinding sound grew louder, joined by others. At least 3 drones, maybe more. Jinwoo squeezed through the crack in the wall just as the first drone entered the chamber behind him. Its scanning light swept across his legs as he pulled himself through. An alarm shrieked, high and piercing. He ran through the ruins, his bag bouncing against his back. The sphere inside felt heavier than it should, like it was made of lead instead of whatever strange material it actually was. Behind him, the grinding of drone motors grew closer. The colony ruins were a maze, but Jinwoo knew every turn and hiding spot. He ducked under a collapsed walkway, squeezed through a gap in a wall, and climbed up a pile of rubble to reach a higher level. The drones followed, relentless and patient, but they were machines. They followed patterns. Jinwoo was human, and humans were good at being unpredictable when they needed to be. He led the drones toward the old reactor district, where the radiation levels were still high enough to scramble their sensors. Then he doubled back through a maintenance tunnel they couldn't fit through and made his way to his shelter on the far side of the colony. By the time he sealed the door behind him, his lungs burned and his legs shook with exhaustion. He pulled the sphere from his bag and set it on his workbench. It pulsed once, as if acknowledging him. Jinwoo stared at it, questions filling his mind. What was this thing? Who made it? And why did it choose to activate for him? A half-starved scavenger living in the bones of a dead colony. The sphere pulsed again, and more words appeared in his head. The test begins. Outside in the darkness above the planet, something changed. Ancient machines in distant star systems woke from sleep that had lasted longer than human civilization. Sensors that had been dark for millions of years suddenly blazed with light. And across the galaxy, every species with the technology to detect it received the same message. Someone had activated the testament. The precursor's final test had begun.